evening, everyone. It's almost 10 o'clock. It's 9:59, and we are 1 minute early live tonight. Good evening, Jay. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good, Chris. How about yourself?
Good. Well, you called this special show tonight, so I'm going to let you talk right now.
Okay, well, going back to the show from the other night when we were talking about the Granite Mountain hot shots and everything that went wrong, it kind of got me thinking a lot and about different things that went wrong there. And then Buddy, my son, he brought up the fact that the same situations have happened in other calls, in different parts of the country. And I kind of want to touch on some of the things that us as firefighters need to really pay attention to and be aware of in our day-to-day operations.
All right.
Um, Now, the what I'm basing it off of is a situation that we're going to do a show later on down the road on. Uh, there's the Hackensack Ford dealership fire and some of the things that went wrong there and that everyone needs to be made aware of today.
Sure. Understandable.
So, first thing is guys, gals, whether you're paid or whether you're volunteer, know your district, know the buildings, uh, the construction, how they're put together. Because in the Hackensack Ford fire, the roof was a firefighter's nightmare. It was bowstring construction. Now, with a bowstring construction roof, if one of the trusses, just one of the trusses, fails, then the whole rafter fails and collapses. And they used to be made out of wood. Now they're made out of steel and aluminum. And you don't see them as much as you used to, but they are still out there. There is six that I know of here where I live, and their bowstring is used to span a long distance.
Right.
And like I said, they used to be made out of wood, and the engineers um, overestimated the strength of them when they were first come out. They will collapse quickly, and it will kill firefighters.
Yeah, it's the
Not
Widowmaker, what they used to call the Widowmaker.
exactly. Um, Along with that, know what's inside these buildings.
As far as your fire load, or
Exactly. What chemicals, cleaning solvents,
right.
anything that can burn. Know what it is, where it is, how it's stored, because that is just that much more fire load and fuel load to the problem. And you don't want to go crawling into something that you don't know anything about. Um, the big thing is uh, the MSDS sheets. Everyone's supposed to have them,
Yeah.
and they're supposed when you pull up on the scene, they're supposed to hand you the book of the MSDS.
It's all
So
online now, but yeah, it's all on computer
yeah,
now.
yeah, but they're supposed
Yeah.
they need to have a hard copy. So because we don't have access to it all the time.
Right.
Some departments are fortunate to have computers on their trucks and they can look all this stuff up on while they're en route. Other departments, rural departments, things like they don't. And and before anyone says anything, rural departments, yes, there are buildings in your district, I guarantee it, that has some kind of cleaning material or some kind of solvents or anything that they use that can cause you a headache. The So, if you can get a hold of a copy of the MSDS sheets, if you don't have access to them, that would be awesome. Uh, if you do have a way to print it off, online and put it in a binder and keep it on your rigs, even better.
Nothing wrong
So,
with hard copies.
no, not a bit. Sometimes I'd rather have a hard copy than I had to rely on the internet, because it's right there. It's tangible. You can hold it in your hand. And for those of us who are not very computer literate, such as myself, you know, hard copy is the best way to go for me.
Right.
Now, the Hackensack Ford fire, the chief was quoted in a press conference as saying he didn't know what was in the building.
Not an excuse.
Not an excuse. What it is according to the IAFF report, the fire inspections had not been done on a regular basis, and in a way, it kind of reminded me of when we did the show on the Charleston Super Sofa store, how the fire codes there were violated, and yes, I said it without stuttering. Um, how the fire codes during that situation had been overlooked, uh, not kept up to code, kind of reminded me of the same thing. It makes me wonder, when was the last time they had went in there, done an inspection, or anything like that. And guys and gals, you don't have to do a formal inspection. If you go to, let's just say you take your car to your local dealership to get it serviced. When you pull it into the garage, just look around. Look at the construction. Look what's on the mechanic's toolboxes as far as cleaning solvents.
Yeah.
At least you'll get an idea. I mean, I work for a car dealership during my off time at the fire department, and they would have cleaning stuff, the Varsol tanks,
Right.
in 55-gallon drums, and it was just right out in the open, right where if someone was using a grinding wheel or a torch or anything, you know, the sparks are flying all over it. But it you can do this and not even, like I said, be performing a formal inspection. And if you get a call there, while en route, tell your engine officer, hey, I was in there the other week. They got such and such and such and such stored up against the wall. No big deal. Now, the next thing I want to touch on, I mean, I know it sounds like I'm going boom, 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 but there's a lot of stuff that I want to try to cover in a short amount of time. And the next thing I want to talk about is the radio communications. In the Hackensack Ford fire, it it was a cluster. It was only one fireground channel. The crews were hollering for help. Everybody was walking all over everybody. The the engine crew that was trapped once the ceiling collapsed, in a 13-minute span, called for help 30 times.
Really?
Really. And 15 of those 30, they were begging for help. And nobody could, I mean, they were giving out, what they were supposed to, where they were at, what was going on, who
They're
they
power
were.
reports.
Exactly. And command was coming back with, are you on the second floor or are you on the first floor? Are you on the north building or the south side of the building? I mean, it was like they wasn't paying attention to what they were saying. Now, granted, like I said, there was a lot of radio communications. At that point in time, if you do not have an emergency, another channel, attack channel, or an ops channel to drop down to, all unnecessary bullshit needs to be cut off the radio.
Exactly.
Emer- Emergency transmissions only.
But that goes back to SOGs we were talking about in the last show for the Granite Mountain hotshots. That you said they didn't have any formal SOGs in place.
Correct. The but now to give the chief the benefit benefit of the doubt, I guess you would say. During this press conference, the town manager did say that the fire chief had requested another fireground channel during in their budget. Now, this town manager had sent out a memo to all of his departments telling them to cut their spending back on their budget because they had to accommodate uh, the refuse disposal
Yeah,
department. I'm sorry, but somebody's life, if I can get another fireground channel, is more important than picking up Miss Edna's garbage and having somewhere to put it. You know, this is a relatively big, big city, Hackensack, New Jersey. I mean, it shouldn't be like that, and it is, and especially in a big municipal town.
no, it shouldn't.
And their first in assignment was two engines, a ladder, and a rescue for a confirmed working structure fire and a large commercial structure. Sorry, folks, that ain't enough.
No,
For some, in my opinion, something like that. Now, you know what they say about opinions,
yeah,
but in my opinion, something like that, if it's confirmed, you get multiple calls on it saying this, giving you the same thing. Don't drop a first alarm. Don't drop. I mean, go ahead and dump a third alarm right off the bat.
right. Because see, I was
Cause I
always taught
mean,
that call for resources early. You can always cancel resources, but you can't get them when you need them if it's too late.
exactly, exactly. My dad used to say it's better to have them on the way and not need them than to need them and they still be sitting in the barn.
Yep.
Now, they had good water supply. They were, you know, the equipment was good. It was just three men on the engines, on the two engines, three men on the ladder, and one guy on the rescue. And the one guy on the rescue was one of the ones that got killed. So I mean, that's what 3, 6, 9, 10 people right off the bat. And how long does it take to get a second alarm? You got to dispatch it. They got to get on the truck. They got to get there. 10 minutes.
If it's a volunteer department, they got to wake up and put their pants on.
Yeah,
I mean, you
eh,
know, depend. You know, if it's the
but
middle of the night. So
but what gets
yeah,
but what what
average dispatch time is 9 minutes right now.
yeah, but what gets me is this was a confirmed working fire. Multiple calls, getting the same information, and the chief and the deputy chief, or excuse me, the battalion chief, had sufficient information when they checked en route to go ahead and say, go ahead and give me a third alarm or give
Right.
me a second. There was no lack or there was a lack in command structure. It was, yeah, there was a chief there was a battalion chief there was captains and lieutenants, but none of them were strong was strong enough to get on the radio and say, there's too much radio traffic. urgent or emergency only. And it just boggles my mind. I'm sorry, y'all. It For a department that big, and for a chief to have as many years of experience as he had, should have known better. And if I'm stepping on anybody's toes,
So be
send
it.
me. So be it. If it, I mean, it might. If me stepping on your toes wakes you up, then so be it. Now, the next thing I want to touch on is accountability, and this part really gets my goat. Accountability is one of the most important things on the fire scene, except besides water supply, life safety, and property conservation. Accountability is right there with those three.
Right.
Now, when asked why, when they asked the chief why was there no accountability, this mug had the nerve to tell this person that there's never any time for accountability on the fire scene. He
Oh,
can't. He said, I can't keep a stopwatch and mark down everything and what time it happened and who's doing what." So basically, everybody on that scene was freelancing because he
by
didn't know where they
definition, yeah.
were. He didn't know where they were. There was no radio communication, or no strong radio communication. Everybody was freelancing. 5 firefighters died from it. There is always time for accountability. It don't really take that long. Have you an accountability officer standing right beside you
Right. A
as you
safety
give
officer.
as
Oh,
you're giving your crews the orders what you want them to do. You look at the accountability officer, engine one crew going interior, they're par four. That's all it takes. And the accountability officer writes it down. We had a fire one time there in Whitney, and I was doing accountability, and we had so many people there that it took 4 legal pads. You know how big legal pads are,
right.
to keep up with where everybody was out. But I didn't lose a single solitary person. I knew where everybody was at any given point in that scene. And it wasn't hard. I stood beside the chief. I listened to what he said, told him, wrote down where he told him to go. There's always a time for accountability. And where this chief gets off saying that there is never time for it, I'm sorry.
Sounds
If
like a
I would,
cop out.
do what?
Said it sounds like a cop out.
Yeah, all it is he was big time covering his butt. And then another reporter asked him, if given the same situation today, would you do anything different? And this mug said no. He would do exactly the same thing.
Wow.
And folks, if you don't believe me, you can find it on YouTube under the Hackensack Ford, New Jersey fire. It's the radio. It's radio transmissions and the press conference afterwards. And it's actually showing the chief saying this, and you can hear the question and you can see his answer. But this mug said no, he would not do anything different. So in other words, he ain't got no problem killing firefighters. Is what it sounds like to me. How about you?
Yeah, sounds like that to me.
Now, I guess you can tell I'm kind of on my soapbox on this tonight, folks. But you know, it's things that we can do on a daily basis to, and we don't even have to be on the engine to do it. The things that you need to that we need to crew together. Every department I've ever went into or been a member of has a meeting at some point in time during the month. The paid crews have a meeting every morning. These are things that can be discussed during that meeting. Everyone has drill time. Paid departments do it every day. Pick out a building. Yeah, you're not pulling hose and squirting water and climbing ladders and all like that, but pick a building. Go to it. Go up to the person in charge. Say, hey, do you mind if we do a walkthrough for our records in case something happens? What's the worst they can say? 99 and 9/10% of the time, they'll be like, yeah, sure, come on in. I mean, easy things that can be done to save a life. And lastly, the thing I want to touch upon is the fact of it kind of goes back, now that I think about it, to know your district. Not only do you need to know the buildings and what's in them and whatnot, water supplies. If you're in a hydranted community or city, you're lucky. But you need to know how much that hydrant's going to flow. If you're not, and you're in a rural community and you depend on drafting from ponds and whatnot, know where your water points are. Know them like the back of your hand. Because knowing that saves time. Knowing how much water you can flow from a hydrant saves time. It will keep you from like, well, I'm going to no, this hydrant don't flow enough water. I'm going to tie into this one over here on the next corner.
So going back to your bowstring, I found a short video. It's like 5 minutes and 32 seconds. I can throw up.
Okay, go for it.
Hold on a second here. I'm going to get it good and start it. It's supposed to be about bowstring construction anyway. I didn't actually pre-watch it. And it comes from Fire Engineering, so no copyright involved.
Hi, I'm Paul Dansback, and welcome to Fire Engineering's Training Minutes. Today we're in a building that is constructed with a heavy timber bowstring truss roof. As you can see, the bowstring truss roof is exposed. There's no truss loft. Any fire in this building can be fought by firefighters with a heavy caliber hose stream and have direct access up into the trusses without any obstructions to the hose stream. Joining us today is Deputy Chief Steve Kalman of the Hackensack Fire Department. Back in July 1st, 1988, Hackensack Fire Department suffered a fire at the Hackensack Ford dealership. Deputy Chief Kalman is going to talk to us a little bit about that fire and the actions the Hackensack Fire Department took after that fire. Chief?
Subsequently, at that fire, 5 members of the Hackensack Fire Department perished while attempting to extinguish the fire. The difference at the Ford fire, which was an auto dealership, was that the bowstring truss roof was concealed and the main body of fire was in the truss area involving stored materials which were illegally stored in the truss area. One of the subsequent results of that fire was the failure to identify the type of construction, which was the bowstring truss roof. And since that fire, immediately after that fire, steps were taken to identify every truss roof in the city by going and actually looking at every commercial building in the city and cataloging the type of truss if one was encountered. The fire exposed the dangers of fighting a fire in truss construction.
A couple of the construction features of this building that we want to point out are the ability of the fire department to identify the trusses from the exterior of the building. As we view the trusses, we can identify the areas of support by the brick columns that are constructed into the exterior walls. These brick columns are visible from the exterior for the firefighters to recognize where the trusses are supported on the exterior wall. We also notice as we move the camera through the building that this is actually a double truss. meaning that two trusses are lined up in the same horizontal plane spanning side to side of the building. One truss is actually open. There's no truss loft. It's a wide open truss space. The other part of the building where the second truss is supported is actually in a concealed space. That is a danger to the fire service. If fire were to extend into that concealed space or originate in that concealed space, the fire can grow in intensity, causing significant damage to that truss, leading to early failure of that truss and a large area collapse on the roof.
As I mentioned earlier, one of the first actions taken by the department immediately after the Ford fire was the recognition and identification of all trusses in the city. They were also placed in a database computer-aided dispatch system, so since that time, the information was given to the companies upon dispatch of an alarm or a fire at a building consisting of truss construction.
Another action that the Hackensack Fire Department took was to require that all buildings with a truss roof or floor be identified with a placard located on the outside of the building. We're going to look at one of those placards in a minute. That local ordinance eventually became a requirement in the New Jersey State Uniform Fire Code, which requires that all buildings that are constructed with some form of a truss be identified with a placard on the outside of the building. The bowstring truss roof of this building is easily identified by responding firefighters because of the unique shape of the roof. Not all truss roofs and bowstring truss roofs will be this easy to identify. Some buildings will have a parapet wall or other wall built around the perimeter of the building to hide or disguise that roof. Firefighters then must employ other means to identify truss roofs on the building. When we're inside the building, we talked about where the trusses were supported on the exterior wall. It was easily identifiable by the brick column inside. Well, we have the same feature on the exterior wall of the building. Here we can see where the brick column is built into the wall. Firefighters can then identify where the trusses are supported on the brick wall.
One of the lessons learned from the Ford fire was the failure to identify the type of construction, specifically the bowstring truss roof and the associated dangers with the same. Paul spoke about the placarding, which was required by city ordinance shortly after the fire, ensures that the company officers of the first arriving units have a better shot at identifying any type truss construction. The sign you see in the background, the triangular sign, needs to be placed within 5 feet of the entrance of any building consisting of a truss roof or floor system.
Identification of buildings constructed with truss roofs is of paramount importance to firefighters. Thanks for watching this session of Fire Engineering's Training Minutes.
We're having an unwanted commercial, apparently.
World of Warships.
Yep.
That's a pretty cool game, but anyway. There you have it, folks. They give you some really good information on how to identify it and what to look for. And the general rule of thumb when I first come into the fire service, when it comes to bowstring, was after 20 minutes, imminent failure. So, you can stick with that depending on how heavy the fire load is, how hot and heavy and intense the fire is burning. Usually 10 to 20 minutes, you're looking at imminent failure. One video I was watching said that you could put master streams inside the doors and, direct it up to keep the trusses cool. Elevated master streams. But if you're working with somebody in the platform or the tower bucket or whatever, they need to be made aware that if that roof fails, they're looking at extreme heat and possible flame impingement also.
Right. So Buddy put a comment up there that says Richard Duffy was the town manager when he said that everybody was freelancing, and also said that everyone should have dropped to non-essential traffic and went emergency traffic only.
I believe. Now, I think he might have that backwards. Richard Duffy was the guy who wrote the report from International Association of Firefighters.
Yeah, if still,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. Um, I believe he's got them mixed up. Um, but the report did say that. I do, you know,
Mhm.
I do remember reading that. So yeah, everybody. It was just a big. It was just a big cluster, and I was really for some reason, and I don't. Well, I do too know why. When they started talking to the deputy chief of Hackensack, when he said the first thing we did after the fire, I was like, get rid of the chief. Cause if he was brazen enough to say that he would not do anything different, that tells me that again that he had no problem whatsoever killing firefighters.
Right.
And
Can't disagree with that.
if it was up to me, and it was one of my family members that got killed, I would strongly be considering pressing charges.
For sure.
Because it's like, here you are, a fire chief. You're supposed to have experience. You're supposed to have training. Take that training and look around. What's going on? Recognize what's going on with your fire scene. If you're not making any progress after 10 minutes, back them out. I mean, it's just simple things. It's not hard, folks. And he 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 just, to me, don't laugh. You've heard me say it before. 90-day wonder, just add water.
Yeah. Well, there's a
And
lot of insta firefighters too out there.
true, but here's the thing, guys and gals, you going through your certification classes for your firefighter 1 and firefighter 2. Building construction is just as important as PPE, water supplies, fire behavior, because your building construction is going to dictate your fire behavior.
And your tactics.
Exactly. And how you're going to go about putting said fire out. So pay attention to building construction just as hard, if not harder, than you would PPE or any of the others.
That was probably one of the hardest classes I had for my certification was building construction.
Uh, it For me, it was kind of easy because one of my best friends was a carpenter, and down on the coast, he's uh, very busy, so he knows what he's doing, knows what he's talking about. And
Right.
if I had a question, he had no problem whatsoever helping me, and kind of building construction for dummies, I guess you would say.
Right.
And, he would kind of dumb it down to where I would understand it better. Because to be honest with you, folks, the only nail that I wind up hitting when I'm trying to build something is that one right there. And you know, just pay attention, learn everything you can about building construction. And I've said it before: keep your head on the swivel on the fire ground, because it's just with this call, there was just so much that went wrong at one time that it's really hard to uh, give you everything at one time. When we actually sit down and do the actual show for it, it might be a two-parter. I don't know, but long story short, it was a disaster that should have been avoided if the chief had gotten off his ass and paid attention to what was going on.
Right.
And yes, if he hears me, and I don't know if the man's even still alive. I don't know, but Jesus, people, how can I have respect for somebody like this? In my time in the fire service, I I never asked anybody in my crew to do a thing anything that I wouldn't go 10 feet further and do. My father, 41 years, he was chief for 10 of those 41 years. That man knew every building inside and out in our district. He knew everything that they kept in that building. And if he could do it, why can't other chiefs do it?
Right.
And he didn't have. And here's the thing, folks. He didn't have a computer in his command buggy. He had it up here and in his MSDS sheets that he kept in a binder, tucked down between the seat and the console of the truck. If there was anything in that you wanted to know about any building in our district, he could tell you. And I mean, and in our district we had motels, uh, gift shops, uh, fish processing plants, fuel depots, you name it, we had it. We had, we even had a Navy practice bombing range 15 miles outside of our district.
Mm. Wow.
So we had military planes flying over constantly.
And
So he could tell you what to do with them crap. I mean, he was a smart man. He knew his crap. That man deserved to be chief. This crackpot from Hackensack that they had, I'd have trouble putting him in charge of washing the dishes after a meal. I mean, seriously, Chris, how can you have any kind of respect for someone who like that?
I mean, especially if they make blatant comments like that in a press conference.
Now, like I said, I will give him, excuse me, I will give him props where props is due. He did ask for a secondary fireground channel. He didn't get it, and according to the town manager, he filed a protest against it, saying that it would inhibit his ability to effectively fight fires.
So he requested a channel during the incident or after the fact where like a permanent channel they can use.
Actually, he had requested it before. I
Okay.
think they said it was like 3 months before the fire, and because budget year goes from last day of June to or from the first day of July to the last day of June. That's usually when what they call it, the fiscal
The
year.
fiscal year, yeah.
That's generally when it runs. And 3 months prior, he is when he requested it, and he got turned down and filed the protest. But other than that, no. So, well, folks, I appreciate y'all letting me vent on this and letting me be on my soapbox. Chris, you got anything you want to add, or?
No. I think you pretty much summed it up pretty well as far as that particular incident.
And like I said, if anybody wants to see the video that's got the press conference and everything in it, go on YouTube, Hackensack, New Jersey, Ford dealership fire. Look for the guy in the suit that's standing in front of a fire truck. That's the thumbnail picture that they have, and you can go from there, and it'll it'll do it. Take you right to it, and it'll go through some of the radio traffic, and then last 15, 20 minutes of the video, it'll show the press conference. You'll be amazed at some of the things that this brazen somebody said.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this up there. We've got a new website for everybody to look at. It's got actually all of our shows. This one goes to the Host Jockeys page as well, but it's a QR code. You can just click on it or take a picture with your camera, and it'll take you to our website where you can see all the stuff related to the Host Jockey shows, as well as there's a link to our main page, which is the JC Fire Productions page, which shows all the all the shows that we're involved in producing on a monthly and weekly basis.
And you got the other QR code ready to rock and roll?
No, I couldn't get it together. I didn't have time for the
Okay, no worries.
donation, but
Yeah.
we do accept
Well,
donations as well. If you like, you can donate on the website as well for to help keep the show afloat.
Yeah. And as always, we like to thank everyone who tuned in and was listening to us. Again, I can't stress it enough. Those few things that I touched base on, knowing your district, keeping the radio traffic to a minimum, especially when a Mayday or whatnot's been called. If you don't have a ops channel or a TAC channel that you can drop to and work the Mayday off of the primary channel. Know what's in the buildings. From Giddy Up the Woad, know the construction type, whether it be bowstring construction, regular pitch roof. Know it. The accountability. There's always time for accountability. I don't care what they say. So, folks, we appreciate you more than you know. We appreciate the comments and the listens.
All right. And
So,
again, like you said, thanks for listening to us, and we'll be back very soon.
see you next time.